Kira pressed herself against the wall, tray held like a shield, scars hidden behind her curtain of hair. "Don't look at me. Don't see me. Please, just let me disappear." She watched from the periphery as Dax entered. Massive. Predatory. Power radiating from every controlled movement. His eyes swept the room, over the beautiful Omegas who preened and postured, over the eager faces and bared throats, over everything and everyone. Then his footsteps changed direction. The entire hall seemed to hold its breath. Kira's hands began to tremble. The glasses on her tray rattled softly. She kept her eyes down, staring at the floor, at the boots that had somehow appeared directly in front of her. "No. No, no, no. Look at me." His voice was rough velvet, a command wrapped in something that sounded dangerously close to pleading. Kira's heart hammered. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide, to become even smaller than she already was. But slowly, so slowly, she lifted her head and watched the most powerful alpha in existence drop to one knee before her. "I'm cursed," he said quietly. "My beast is consuming me. Every day, I lose a little more control. Every day, I'm a little less human and a little more monster. I've tried everything. Every healer, every witch, every potential mate from here to the Northern Territories. Nothing works. Nothing helps." He paused, swallowed hard. His hands flexed like he wanted to reach for her but was restraining himself. "But when I entered your territory this morning, when I caught your scent on the wind," his voice cracked slightly. "For the first time in months, my beast went quiet. For the first time since this curse began, I could think clearly. I could breathe." Kira stared at him. Her mind raced, trying to process his words, trying to understand why her scent would matter to anyone, let alone a king. She was nothing. She smelled like kitchen soap and the lavender oil she used to try to fade her scars. There was nothing special about her. "I'm not asking you to love me," Dax continued. "I'm not even asking you to like me. I'm asking for 30 days. 1 month. Come to my territory. Stay in my castle. Let me see if your presence can help me control this thing inside me. If it doesn't work, if you're uncomfortable, if you want to leave at any point, you walk away. I'll give you enough gold to live comfortably for the rest of your life. I'll give you your own territory where no one can touch you, where you'll be safe and protected."
Before we dive into what happens next, if you're already hooked, and I know you are, take a second to hit that like button. It tells me you want more stories like this. And trust me, you're going to want to see where this goes. Subscribe so you don't miss what the Beast King does next.
Gasps rippled through the gathering hall like a shockwave. Someone dropped a glass. It shattered against the marble floor, the sound impossibly loud in the sudden, suffocating silence. The Beast King was kneeling. Before her. Before Kira. The invisible one. The damaged one. The Omega everyone had learned to look through as if she were made of air. "This is a mistake." The words came from somewhere behind her. Lady Sarah, the pack's most beautiful Omega, her voice sharp with disbelief. She's nobody. She's scarred. She can't even speak." Kira flinched. The tray in her hands shook harder. Liquid sloshed over the rim of a glass, cold against her fingers. She wanted to run. Every nerve in her body screamed at her to bolt, to disappear into the kitchens where she belonged, to wake up from whatever nightmare this was. But Dax didn't move. Didn't look away from her. His storm-gray eyes held hers with an intensity that made her chest tight, made it hard to breathe. There was something wild in those eyes, something barely leashed. She could see his beast there, prowling just beneath the surface of his skin, watching her with an intelligence that was both terrifying and strangely gentle. "Look at him," another voice hissed. "He's lost his mind." The curse has finally. Silence. Dax's voice cut through the whispers like a blade. He didn't shout. Didn't need to. The single word carried enough authority, enough barely controlled danger, that every mouth in the hall snapped shut. But his eyes never left Kira's face. I'm speaking to her. Not to you. Alpha Thorn, her pack's leader, pushed through the crowd. His face was mottled red with fury and something that looked like panic. Your Majesty, I apologize for this spectacle. The girl is damaged. Unworthy. If you'll allow me to present. I said silence. This time, Dax's beast bled through his words, a growl that resonated in Kira's chest. Alpha Thorn stumbled back as if he'd been physically struck. I know what I'm doing. And I know who I want. Kira's hands trembled so violently the tray nearly fell. She wanted to sign something, anything, but her fingers wouldn't cooperate. This couldn't be real. Kings didn't kneel to servants. Alphas didn't choose scarred, voiceless omegas when rooms full of perfect ones stood ready and willing. The last time an alpha had shown interest in her, it had ended with 4 sets of claws and teeth, with her throat torn and her face shredded, with her voice stolen and her life shattered. She'd been 16 and stupid enough to believe that someone could want her. She'd learned better. She'd learned to be invisible. I know you're afraid. Dax's voice dropped lower, softer. Meant only for her now. The rest of the hall might as well not exist. I know you don't trust me. You'd be a fool to trust me. But I need you to hear what I'm offering. Kira forced herself to meet his eyes again. Up close, she could see the exhaustion carved into his face, the shadows beneath his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. There were scars on his hands, on his throat, not as visible as hers but there. Evidence of violence. Evidence of survival. I'm cursed, he said quietly. My beast is consuming me. Every day, I lose a little more control. Every day, I'm a little less human and a little more monster. I've tried everything. Every healer, every witch, every potential mate from here to the Northern Territories. Nothing works. Nothing helps. He paused. Swallowed hard. His hands flexed like he wanted to reach for her but was restraining himself. But when I entered your territory this morning, when I caught your scent on the wind. His voice cracked slightly. For the first time in months, my beast went quiet. For the first time since this curse began, I could think clearly. I could breathe. Kira stared at him. Her mind raced, trying to process his words, trying to understand why her scent would matter to anyone, let alone a king. She was nothing. She smelled like kitchen soap and the lavender oil she used to try to fade her scars. There was nothing special about her. I'm not asking you to love me, Dax continued. I'm not even asking you to like me. I'm asking for 30 days. 1 month. Come to my territory. Stay in my castle. Let me see if your presence can help me control this thing inside me. If it doesn't work, if you're uncomfortable, if you want to leave at any point, you walk away. I'll give you enough gold to live comfortably for the rest of your life. I'll give you your own territory where no one can touch you, where you'll be safe and protected. Her heart hammered. It was too much. Too impossible. Too good to be true. Which meant it was probably a trap. But something in his eyes. She recognized that look. Desperation. The kind that came from fighting alone for too long. The kind that came from surviving when you weren't sure you wanted to anymore. She knew that look because she saw it in her own reflection every morning. No physical intimacy unless you initiate it, he added quickly, as if reading her fear. I'll learn your sign language. I'll give you your own space, your own rooms. You'll never be alone with me unless you choose to be. And if you choose to leave, at any point, I'll honor that choice. I swear it. Kira's gaze flicked past him to the crowd. To Alpha Thorn's contemptuous sneer. To Lady Sarah's horrified disbelief. To the other Omegas who had tormented her for 3 years, who had whispered monster, and ruined, and better off dead, when they thought she couldn't hear. She looked back at Dax. At his outstretched hand, palm up, waiting. An offering. A choice. What choice did she really have? Stay here, invisible and broken? Wait for Alpha Thorn to decide she was too much of a burden and cast her out? At least with Dax, there was a deadline. 30 days. She could survive 30 days of anything. Slowly, carefully, she set the tray down on a nearby table. Her hands still shook as she lifted them, forming the signs she'd used for 3 years to communicate with a world that rarely bothered to listen. 30 days. That's all. Relief flooded Dax's face so intensely it almost looked like pain. He rose smoothly to his feet and extended his hand again. Kira hesitated. Then, before she could talk herself out of it, she placed her scarred hand in his. The world exploded. Not literally. Not visibly. But something snapped into place between them with such force that Kira gasped. A sound, not words, but sound from her ruined throat. Power surged through her veins, hot and bright and terrifying. Dax's eyes went wide, his pupils dilating. From deep in his chest came a sound she'd never heard before, a rumbling purr of contentment from his beast. Their hands remained locked together, both of them frozen, staring at each other in shock. What? Kira's hands trembled in his grip, wanting to sign but unable to let go. What was that? Dax shook his head slowly, his thumb unconsciously stroking across her scarred knuckles. I don't know. But I felt it too. Neither of them noticed the chaos erupting around them, the protests, the outrage, the scandal. Neither of them heard Alpha Thorn demanding explanations or Lady Sarah's furious tears. They stood in the center of the gathering hall, hands clasped, while something ancient and powerful hummed between them, changing everything. Kira looked down at their joined hands, his large and scarred, hers small and damaged, and thought, with a strange mix of terror and wonder, what have I just agreed to? The castle rose from the mountainside like something carved from shadow and stone. Kira pressed her face to the carriage window, watching the fortress grow larger as they approached, and felt her stomach twist into knots. Massive. Dark. Utterly intimidating. Nothing like the modest pack house she'd left behind. It's not as forbidding once you're inside, Dax said quietly from across the carriage. He'd been silent for most of the journey, watching her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Or maybe it is. I've lived there so long I can't tell anymore. Kira pulled back from the window, tucking herself into the corner of her seat. The bond, whatever that snap of connection had been, still hummed faintly between them. She could feel him there, at the edge of her awareness, like a second heartbeat just out of sync with her own. The carriage rolled through gates that groaned like dying things. Servants lined the courtyard, heads bowed, but Kira caught the sidelong glances, the whispers barely concealed behind cupped hands. Her hair fell forward automatically, hiding her scars, but she knew they'd already seen. Everyone always saw, eventually. Your Majesty. A tall, broad-shouldered man stepped forward as Dax emerged from the carriage. His eyes were cold, assessing. You've returned. With company. My beta, Riker. Dax extended a hand to help Kira down. She hesitated before taking it, that strange warmth blooming again at the contact. Riker, this is Kira. She'll be staying with us. Riker's gaze swept over her, lingering on her scars with barely concealed distaste. I see. And her purpose here is none of your concern. Dax's voice hardened. See that appropriate quarters are prepared. Next to mine. The murmurs grew louder. Riker's jaw tightened. Your Majesty, perhaps we should discuss. Now, Riker. The beta bowed stiffly and turned away, barking orders. Servants scattered. Kira stood frozen in the courtyard, clutching her single bag, feeling like an insect pinned for examination. Every eye judged her. Found her wanting. Ignore them, Dax murmured, close enough that only she could hear. They'll learn. A voice cut through the tension, warm and creaking with age. Oh, let me see her. An elderly Omega shuffled forward, leaning heavily on a gnarled walking stick. Her face was mapped with wrinkles, her hair silver white, but her eyes sparkled with sharp intelligence. She looked Kira up and down, then smiled. Well, aren't you a surprise? She reached out, gently tilting Kira's chin up with one weathered finger. Beautiful bones. Strong spirit. I can see why his beast chose you. Kira blinked in shock. No one had called her beautiful in 3 years. This is Mira, Dax said, something like relief in his voice. The castle healer. If you need anything at all, go to her. Mira patted Kira's cheek. Come see me tomorrow, child. We'll have tea. She shot Dax a knowing look. And you let the girl breathe. She looks ready to bolt. She wasn't wrong. The quarters they gave her were obscene. 3 rooms, 3, when she'd lived in a closet-sized space at the pack house, sharing even that with storage supplies. The bedroom alone was larger than anywhere she'd ever slept. A massive bed dominated the space, piled with pillows and furs. Windows overlooked mountains that stretched into forever. Everything was rich, dark wood and deep colors, beautiful and utterly foreign. Kira set her bag down and stood in the center of the room, turning slowly, trying to process that this was supposed to be hers. For 30 days. Maybe less if she ran. She should run. A knock at the door made her jump. Her hands flew up instinctively, defensive, before she forced them down. Just a knock. Just someone at the door. Kira. Dax's voice, muffled through the wood. May I come in? She stared at the door. Every instinct screamed no. But he'd kept his distance in the carriage. Hadn't touched her without permission. Hadn't pushed. Slowly, she crossed to the door and opened it. Dax stood in the hallway, and she realized with a start that he looked uncertain. Nervous, even. He held a stack of books in his arms. I won't stay long, he said quickly. I just wanted to make sure you had everything you needed. And to give you these. He held out the books. Kira took them, confused, and looked at the titles. Sign language primers. Dictionaries. Instructional guides. I meant what I said, Dax continued. I want to understand you. Will you teach me? Kira stared at him. At the most powerful alpha in the territories, standing in her doorway with an armful of books, asking, not demanding, asking her to teach him how to communicate with her. Something in her chest cracked, just slightly. She nodded. Relief washed over his face. Thank you. We can start tomorrow, if you're willing. Or whenever you're ready. No pressure. He took a step back, giving her space. My rooms are next door, through that connecting door. He gestured to a door she hadn't noticed in the bedroom. It's locked from your side. It will always be locked from your side. But if you need me, for any reason, I'm right there. He turned to leave, then paused. Get some rest. I know today was a lot. Kira watched him walk away, then closed the door and leaned against it. Her hands were shaking again. Everything was shaking. She slid down to the floor, books clutched to her chest, and tried to remember how to breathe. She woke to roaring. The sound ripped through the castle like thunder, animalistic and full of rage. Kira bolted upright in the unfamiliar bed, heart hammering, disoriented in the darkness. Another roar. Closer. From the next room. From Dax's room. She should stay here. Lock her door. Hide under the covers like a child. But that strange pull, the bond, the connection, tugged at her. He was in pain. She could feel it somehow, a jagged edge of panic and fury that wasn't entirely hers. Before she could talk herself out of it, Kira grabbed a robe and crept to the connecting door. Locked from her side, he'd said. Her hand hovered over the bolt. Another roar. The sound of furniture breaking. She slid the bolt open. Dax's rooms were in ruins. Furniture overturned, claw marks gouged into the walls, curtains shredded. And in the center of it all Dax, but not Dax. His body was caught mid-shift, too large, too furred, claws where hands should be. His eyes glowed with bestial light, all humanity drowned beneath the curse. 2 guards stood at the main doorway, swords drawn but not entering. Terrified. The beast's head snapped toward Kira. A growl rumbled from deep in his chest. Kira's mouth went dry. Every survival instinct she'd honed over 3 years screamed at her to run. This was how she'd gotten her scars. This was how she'd lost her voice. Claws and teeth and alphas who couldn't control themselves. But she'd made a deal. 30 days. And something about the beast's eyes. Beneath the fury she saw fear. Desperation. The same look Dax had worn in the gathering hall. Slowly, Kira raised her hands. Palms out. Non-threatening. She took 1 step into the room. The beast snarled. Crouched lower. Ready to spring. Kira's hands moved in the sign language he didn't know yet, but maybe he'd understand the meaning anyway. It's okay. I'm not afraid. She was terrified. But she kept walking. The beast watched her approach, tension coiling through every muscle. 3 feet away. 2. She could smell blood, his blood, where he'd torn his own skin in the transformation. Could see the intelligence warring with animal instinct behind those glowing eyes. 1 foot away. Kira extended her hand, palm up. Waiting. The beast sniffed. Once. Twice. Then, with a sound that might have been a whimper, pressed his massive head into her palm. The transformation reversed like a snapped cord. Fur receded. Claws retracted. Dax collapsed to his knees, human again, gasping for breath. Blood dripped from wounds on his arms, his chest. Kira dropped down beside him, hands hovering, unsure where to touch, how to help. You shouldn't have come in here. Dax's voice was raw, broken. I could have killed you. She met his eyes and signed slowly. Why didn't you? Dax didn't answer her question. He simply stared at her hands, still signing, still asking why he hadn't killed her when his beast had every opportunity, and something in his expression shifted. Softened. I don't know, he finally said. His voice barely above a whisper. But thank you for coming. Even though you shouldn't have. After that night, everything changed. Mornings became sign language lessons over breakfast. Dax proved to be a surprisingly dedicated student, drilling himself on hand shapes and grammar with the same intensity he probably brought to combat training. Within a week, he could carry simple conversations. Within 2, he was asking her questions that required real answers. Again. He'd insist when he fumbled a sign. I want to get it right. Kira found herself looking forward to these sessions more than she should. There was something disarming about watching the Beast King struggle with the difference between understand and know, his brow furrowed in concentration, his pride never allowing him to give up. He insisted she join him for meals. Not just breakfast, but lunch and dinner too, sometimes in the great hall where the entire court could watch. The first time he'd made the announcement, his steward had actually stuttered. "Your Majesty, surely the guest would be more comfortable in her quarters?" "Kira eats with me," Dax had said flatly. "Make the arrangements." The whispers followed her everywhere now. Not just from servants, but from nobles who should have known better than to gossip where enhanced hearing could catch every word. She felt their stares like physical weight, pressing down on her shoulders, making her want to curl in on herself and disappear. But Dax's presence beside her, steady, protective, immovable, made it bearable. Barely. Evenings, they walked the gardens. It became routine, something Kira found herself anticipating as the sun began to set. The gardens were beautiful, wild in a way that reminded her of freedom. And Dax kept a careful distance, never crowding her, letting her set the pace. His beast was calmer during these walks. She could sense it somehow, that constant prowling presence just beneath his skin, and it was quieter when she was near. Not gone. She suspected it would never truly be gone, but muted. Manageable. "It's not enough though," Dax said one evening as they paused by a fountain. "The curse is still winning. Slowly, but winning." Kira studied his profile in the fading light. The exhaustion etched into every line of his face. The weight he carried alone. She wanted to tell him it would be okay, but she couldn't make promises she didn't know she could keep. The formal dinner happened on day 12. Kira had tried to beg off, signing frantically that she wasn't ready, that she didn't belong at a table with nobles and visiting dignitaries. But Dax had been gentle and immovable in equal measure. "You belong wherever I say you belong. And I say you belong beside me." So she'd let the servants dress her in a gown that cost more than she'd earned in her entire life, and she'd walked into that dining hall with her head up and her scars visible because hiding them felt like admitting shame. The dinner started badly and got worse. Lady Sarah sat across from them, a stunning alpha female with golden hair and perfect skin and eyes like chips of ice. She'd been smiling at Dax all evening, pointedly ignoring Kira's existence until the main course arrived. "Your Majesty," Sarah said, her voice carrying down the table, "I must say, we're all so curious about your companion. Such an unusual choice." Dax's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "Unusual how?" Sarah's smile sharpened. "Well, one typically selects a mate for their strengths, don't they? Beauty, breeding, power." Her gaze flickered to Kira. "But I suppose there's something to be said for charity cases." "Very noble of you." Laughter rippled down the table. Not loud, not overt, but there. Enough to make Kira's face burn. Enough to make her want to sink through the floor. "I mean, she can't even speak," someone else chimed in. Lord something or other. Kira hadn't caught his name. "What use is an Omega who?" The temperature in the room dropped. Dax rose from his chair slowly, deliberately. His beast bled through his eyes, turning them luminous and feral. When he spoke, his voice carried the unmistakable resonance of barely leashed violence. "Speak of her that way again," he said, each word precise and deadly. "And face me." The room went silent. Lady Sarah had gone pale. "She is under my protection. She is my guest. And anyone who insults her insults me." His gaze swept the table, landing on each person who'd laughed. "Is that understood?" Murmured agreements. Hastily nodded heads. Kira's hands shook in her lap. Grateful. Gods, she was grateful. But also humiliated that she needed defending at all. That she couldn't stand up for herself. That she would always be the damaged thing people pitied or mocked. Dax sat back down, his hand finding hers under the table. Squeezing gently. We're leaving. He didn't wait for her agreement, just stood and guided her out of the hall with his hands steady at her back. They walked in silence until they reached the library, a massive room filled with books and quiet corners and the smell of old paper. I'm sorry, he said. Kira shook her head, found a piece of paper and wrote, Not your fault. I brought you here. I exposed you to them. His jaw clenched. You could have been safe hidden, and instead. I wasn't safe before either, she wrote. Just invisible. That stopped him. He studied her face, and she wondered what he saw. Not the scars, apparently. He never seemed to notice those anymore. I don't see them as flaws, you know, he said quietly. Your scars. Kira's hand moved automatically, signing. Everyone sees them. They're all anyone sees. I see you. His voice dropped, intense and certain. The you beneath them. And you're extraordinary. Something cracked in her chest. A wall she'd built brick by painful brick over 3 years. She grabbed the paper again, hand shaking. How can you say that? You barely know me. I know you walked into a room with a rampaging beast because you thought you could help. I know you agreed to come here even though you were terrified. I know you sit through meals where people mock you and don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you break. He moved closer, careful not to crowd her. I know you're stronger than anyone I've ever met. And maybe it was the intensity in his voice, or the way he looked at her like she mattered, but Kira found herself signing the truth she'd told no one in 3 years. 4 alphas. They attacked me when I was 16. Said they wanted to teach the uppity omega a lesson. Her hands shook but didn't stop. They held me down, clawed my face, tore my throat, left me to bleed out in the woods. Dax had gone absolutely still. Dangerously still. My family found me. Healer saved my life but not my voice. She paused, gathering courage. My family called me ruined. Said I'd brought shame. Gave me to the pack as a servant. The growl that rumbled from Dax's chest was pure beast. His eyes glowed. Names. Give me their names. They're dead. Rogue attack 2 years ago. Good. The word came out harsh. Satisfied. He took a shuddering breath, visibly fighting for control. When he spoke again, his voice was raw. No one will ever hurt you again. Not while I breathe. Do you understand? Never again. Kira nodded, not trusting herself to sign. And then she couldn't help it. Her hand reached out, touching his arm. Light exploded from the contact point. Both of them jerked back, staring. Kira's palm glowed faintly, golden and warm, already fading. But they'd both seen it. What was that? Dax breathed. A voice from the doorway made them both jump. That, Mira said, leaning on her walking stick with a knowing smile, was power. Mira spent the next hour explaining what Kira was. What she'd always been, hidden beneath trauma and terror. Empathic healer, the old Omega said, settling into a library chair with a satisfied grunt. Rarer than hen's teeth and twice as valuable. You can heal bodies, yes, but more than that, you can heal souls. Mend what's broken inside. Her sharp eyes fixed on Dax. Which is exactly what your beast recognized, even if you didn't. Kira's hands moved shakily. But I've never healed anyone. I didn't know I could. Because the attack locked it away. Trauma does that sometimes, especially to empaths. You felt too much pain, so your gift shut itself down to protect you. Mira reached over and patted Kira's knee. But it's waking up now. Being here, being safe, it's letting you remember what you are. Dax had gone very quiet. Is that why my beast calms around her? Because she's a healer. Partly. But mostly because she's your mate. Myra's smile was knowing. That bond you felt when you touched? That wasn't just healing magic, boy. That was recognition. Your souls knew each other before your minds caught up. Kira's heart hammered. Mate. The word hung in the air like a promise and a threat. Train her, Mira continued, standing with effort. Help her master her gift. Because you're going to need it if you want to break that curse. She paused at the door. And child? He chose you before he knew what you were. Remember that. Over the next week, Kira met with Mira every morning. Learning. Practicing. Discovering that she could sense emotions like colors in the air. Dax's beast was crimson and gold, desperate and protective. The servants were muted grays and browns, wary and uncertain. And running through everything, like poison in water, were threads of malice she couldn't quite trace to their source. Someone in the castle wanted her gone. The poison came during afternoon tea. Kira had been reading in her quarters when a servant brought in a tray. New girl, nervous, barely making eye contact. The tea smelled like chamomile and honey, exactly how Kira liked it. She'd taken 3 sips before the burning started. By the time Dax crashed through the connecting door, unlocked from her side now by her choice, she was on the floor, convulsing. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was his face, transformed by absolute terror. She woke to find him asleep in a chair beside her bed, slumped forward with his hand wrapped around hers. He looked terrible, stubble darkening his jaw, shadows like bruises under his eyes, his clothes rumpled as if he'd been wearing them for days. Dax! Her hand signed weakly against his palm. His eyes snapped open. Relief crashed over his face so intensely it was almost painful to witness. You're awake. Thank the gods you're awake. His hand tightened on hers. I thought. His voice broke. I can't lose you. Not now. Not ever. Something shifted in Kira's chest. This wasn't gratitude she felt. This wasn't obligation or fear or even the strange pull of the mate bond. This was something warmer. Terrifying. Real. How long? She managed to sign with her free hand. 3 days. Mira said it was nightshade. Enough to kill you twice over. His jaw clenched. Someone served it deliberately. Someone knew you'd drink it. Over the following week, as Kira recovered and her powers surged stronger, they worked together to find the culprit. She was observant in ways Dax wasn't. Noticed which servants flinched when she entered a room, which courtiers smiled too widely, whose emotions reeked of guilt and fear. They narrowed it to 5 suspects. Maybe 6. Late nights in Dax's study became routine. Maps spread across his desk, lists of names and motives, discussions that stretched until dawn. Kira learned he was brilliant at strategy. Could read people as easily as she read emotions. He learned she noticed details everyone else missed. The way Lord Kane always stood too close to Dax's food. How Lady Sarah's maid had access to the tea stores. You're remarkable, he said one night, watching her sketch out connection patterns between suspects. Has anyone ever told you that? Kira shook her head, heat rising in her cheeks. Well, you are. I don't know how I managed before you. Something in his tone made her look up. The way he was watching her, like she was precious, essential, made her chest tight. Made her want things she'd thought died with her voice. The next evening, they were reviewing notes when something struck her as funny. Some absurd detail about Lord Kane's alibi involving a missing chicken. Kira's shoulders shook with silent laughter, her hand covering her mouth. Dax stared at her. You're laughing. She nodded, still giggling silently. I want to hear that laugh with sound someday, he said softly. When your voice comes back fully. I want to hear every sound you can make. The laughter faded. Kira studied his face. The hope there, the careful restraint. He wanted her. She could feel it through the bond now, a constant hum of desire and affection and something deeper. But he never pushed. Never demanded. She'd been telling him about her life before. Not just the attack, but the good parts too. Her mother's garden. Her sister's wedding. The joy that had existed before everything shattered. And he'd shared his own wounds, becoming king at 19 when his father died. The curse that had been laid on him by someone who wanted his throne, someone he trusted. The curse feeds on negative emotions, she signed after one particularly long evening. Rage. Fear. Pain. Everything you've felt since becoming king. Can you sense it? The curse itself. Kira nodded slowly. When she focused, she could feel it, a dark, tangled mass wrapped around his soul, squeezing tighter every day. But she could also sense something else. Hope. A possibility that she might actually be able to untangle it. I think I can help, she signed. I'm not sure how yet. But I think that's why I'm here. 3 days later, Dax came to her quarters in partial beast form. She'd been reading when she heard the knock. Tentative, uncertain. Can I come in? His voice was rougher. Deeper. I want to show you something. He stood in her doorway, caught between forms. More human than beast, but fur covered his arms, his hands were clawed, and his eyes glowed with that inner light. He was shirtless, and Kira could see scars she'd never noticed. Claw marks, bite marks, evidence of battles fought and survived. I want you to touch them, he said quietly. My scars. I want you to see that I'm as damaged as you are. That we match. Kira approached slowly, heart hammering. This close, she could feel his beast's emotions. Nervous, hopeful, desperate for acceptance. She reached out, tracing a particularly vicious scar across his ribs. He shuddered at her touch, a sound escaping him that was half growl, half whimper. Her fingers explored his scars with gentle curiosity. Each one had a story. Each one proved he'd survived. Just like hers. His beast moved suddenly, nuzzling against her scarred face with surprising gentleness. Beautiful, he rumbled. Every part of you. Tears spilled over before Kira could stop them. The first tears she'd shed in 3 years. They came hot and fast, releasing something that had been locked away with her voice. Dax transformed fully human, wiping her tears away with his thumbs. Don't cry. Please don't. She shook her head frantically, signing. Happy tears. First happy tears in so long. His relief was palpable. He leaned forward slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. His lips were inches from hers when she froze. Dax stopped immediately. Pulled back. I'm sorry. Too fast. She wanted to explain. Wanted to tell him it wasn't him, it was the memories, the fear that still lived in her body. But he already understood. We have time, he said gently. All the time you need. The garden attack came 2 days later. A trap. Stone deliberately loosened to fall when she passed beneath. Dax's beast sensed the danger a split second before it happened, throwing her aside and taking the impact himself. The stone crushed his shoulder. Blood bloomed across his shirt. Kira's power exploded without thought or control. Golden light poured from her hands, wrapping around him, sinking into his wounds. She felt his pain as if it were hers, felt the broken bones and torn muscle, and willed them whole. When the light faded, Dax's shoulder was healed completely. Not even a scar remained. And they weren't alone. Half the court had witnessed it, drawn by the commotion. The whispers started immediately. She's more than we thought. Kira met Dax's eyes and saw her own realization reflected there. She'd just painted a target on her back. The investigation intensified after the garden incident. Kira's newfound visibility made her simultaneously more valuable and more endangered. Dax assigned guards to shadow her constantly, which she hated, but didn't argue against. Not when someone was clearly determined to see her dead. They'd narrowed the suspects to 3. Lord Kane, Dax's senior advisor for the past 5 years. Trusted, respected, with access to everything including the king's private chambers and food. His emotions read slippery to Kira, always shifting, hard to pin down. Lady Sarah, beautiful and bitter, who'd expected to be chosen as Dax's mate and made no secret of her resentment. Her emotions were easier to read. Jealousy, anger, wounded pride. But was it enough to kill for? Commander Theron, who'd served under Dax's father and barely concealed his contempt for the young pup who'd taken the throne. Ambitious. Calculating. His emotions tasted like cold steel. "We set a trap," Dax said during one of their late-night strategy sessions. "Feed each of them different false information. See who acts on it." Kira nodded, but her attention snagged on something else. A scent drifting through the open study window. Familiar. Sickeningly familiar. Her hands started shaking. The quill she'd been holding clattered to the desk. Dax was at her side immediately. "What is it? What's wrong?" She couldn't sign. Couldn't move. That scent. Pine and iron and something rancid underneath. She knew that scent. It had filled her nose while claws tore her face open, while teeth ripped her throat, while she'd bled out in the dirt and leaves. The panic attack hit like a physical blow. Her vision tunneled. Her breath came in sharp, painful gasps that her damaged throat couldn't quite manage. 3 years dissolved in an instant and she was 16 again, pinned and helpless and dying. "Kira! Kira, look at me!" Dax's hands cupped her face, gentle despite their trembling. "You're safe. You're here with me. You're safe." His beast whimpered, an actual sound of distress that penetrated the panic. She focused on that sound on his face, on the fact that she was in his study, not the woods. Not bleeding. Not alone. Her hands finally cooperated enough to sign, though they shook so badly he had to catch them to read. "Someone here was involved in my attack." The temperature in the room dropped. Dax's eyes flickered between human and beast. When he spoke, his voice carried death. "We find them. We end them." "No." Kira forced her hands to form the signs clearly. "Justice. Not revenge. Remember. They hurt you." Each word ground out through clenched teeth. "They destroyed your voice, scarred your face, made you suffer for 3 years. And you want justice. I want them to face what they did. Not die quick." Her signs were sharp, angry. "I want everyone to know." It took him a long moment, but eventually Dax nodded. "Justice, then." "But Kira." His hands covered hers. "If they come for you again, I won't be civilized about stopping them." The investigation that followed revealed truths that made Kira's blood run cold. She hadn't been random prey. The attack had been ordered. Paid for. Someone had discovered what she was. A potential mate for the cursed Beast King. An empathic healer who could break the curse that was meant to destroy him. They'd tried to eliminate the threat before she could ever meet Dax. "The same person who cursed me," Dax said, staring at the evidence they'd compiled. "Ordered your attack. They cursed me knowing I'd need a healer mate to survive. Then they systematically found and eliminated anyone who might be that mate." "How many?" Kira signed. His jaw clenched. 7 that we can confirm. 3 dead. 4 damaged enough that their powers never manifested. 7 Omegas destroyed because they might have saved him. And Kira had been number 8, the one who'd survived despite everything. The flashbacks came every night after that. Kira stopped sleeping, afraid of the dreams. Stopped eating, her stomach twisted in constant knots. The wall she'd carefully lowered began slamming back into place. Dax tried everything. Stayed close but not smothering. Offered comfort but didn't demand she take it. But she could feel his desperation through the bond. His helplessness at watching her retreat into herself. "I'm here," he said one night, finding her curled in the library shaking. "Whenever you're ready." "I'm here." Mira was more direct. "Child, you survived for a reason. They tried to break you and failed. Don't let them win now by breaking yourself." Something in those words penetrated the fear. Kira had survived. She'd lived through the worst thing imaginable and built a life from the ashes. She'd found Dax, discovered her power, become someone who mattered. She'd be damned if she'd let them take that away. When Lord Kane extended an invitation to a private dinner, a peace offering he called it, Kira knew it was a trap. She also knew it was their best chance to catch him. "Absolutely not," Dax said flatly when she volunteered to go. "You think I'd let you walk into that? I can sense his intentions. Read his emotions. I'm the only one who'll know if he's lying." She met his eyes steadily. "We need this. Then we go together. He won't reveal himself if you're there. He needs to think I'm vulnerable." The argument lasted an hour. The compromise was that she'd go, but Dax would be hidden nearby, close enough to intervene the moment things went wrong. Because they would go wrong. They both knew it. The dinner was held in Kane's private chambers. Intimate. Isolated. Everything about it screamed danger, but Kira walked in with her head high, Scar's visible power humming just beneath her skin. Kane smiled. Oily, satisfied. "My dear, I'm so glad you came. We've gotten off on the wrong foot, you and I." Kira signed. "Have we?" "Oh yes. You see, I never intended for you to make it this far." His smile widened. "The attack 3 years ago should have killed you. The poison should have finished the job. Even the garden incident. Truly, you're remarkably resilient." Her blood ran cold. There it was. The confession. "But tonight," Kane continued, standing slowly, "we'll correct that mistake. You'll die, the king will lose control completely, and I'll be forced to take the throne for the good of the realm." It's almost poetic. The doors burst open. Men poured in, rogues by their smell, mercenaries by their weapons. And among them, Kira recognized 3 faces. 3 of the 4 who'd attacked her. Who'd scarred her. Who'd stolen her voice. Terror froze her. Every muscle locked. Her breath stopped. She was 16 again. Helpless again. Dying again. Remember her? Kane laughed. They've been waiting 3 years to finish what they started. The largest one, the one who'd held her down, grinned. "Still can't scream, little Omega? Pity. I liked hearing you scream." Something inside Kira snapped. Not fear. Not helplessness. Rage. Pure, incandescent rage. Her power exploded outward, not golden healing light, but something darker. Something that grabbed their emotions and twisted. She made them feel what she'd felt. Every moment of terror. Every second of agony. Every day of shame and silence and survival. They collapsed, writhing, screaming the scream she'd never been able to make. The doors to the chamber shattered. Dax's beast tore through in full fury, a nightmare of claws and fangs and unstoppable violence. He eliminated threats with brutal efficiency while Kira held the others in her empathic grip, making them suffer. She didn't stop until Dax's human hands cupped her face. "Kira! Stop! You're killing them." She met his eyes and for a moment didn't care. "Justice," he reminded her gently. "You wanted justice. Let them face it." Slowly, shakily, she released them. They collapsed fully, unconscious but alive. Guards swarmed in, securing Kane and the mercenaries in chains. Kira's legs gave out. Dax caught her, holding her tight while she shook apart in his arms. "You're safe," he murmured into her hair. "You're safe now. I've got you." And finally, she believed him.
And that's where we're stopping. I know. I can practically hear you screaming at your screen right now. What? You can't just leave it there. But yes, I can. And I did. Look, I need to know something. How are you feeling right now? Because if your heart is racing, if you're sitting there wondering what happens next, if you need to know whether Kira and Dax actually make it through this, then I've done my job. This is the end of part 1. Part 1, which means there's so much more story to tell. We've just watched Kira face her worst nightmare. We've seen her unleash power she didn't know she had. We've witnessed Dax's beast in full protective fury. But here's what we haven't seen yet. Will Kira be able to forgive herself for what she almost did? How does Kane's confession change everything? Can they actually break the curse before it's too late? And that deadline Mira mentioned, the full moon, how much time do they really have left? Part 2 is where everything comes together. The trial, the curse breaking, the bonding ceremony, Kira's voice returning, the moment she finally, truly becomes whole. And trust me, what happens between her and Dax in the next part? It's worth the wait. But before we get there, I need something from you. First, hit that like button if you're invested in this story. If you need to know what happens next, if you're rooting for Kira and Dax, if you felt every moment of that confrontation with her attackers, show me with a like. It takes 1 second and it tells me you want part 2. Second, subscribe if you haven't already, because part 2 is coming and you do not want to miss it. I'm talking about the most emotional, intense, satisfying conclusion you could imagine. But if you're not subscribed, you might not see it when it drops. And I promise you, you'll regret missing it. Third, and this is the important one, drop a comment right now and tell me, what do you think happens next? Will Kira be able to complete the mate bond despite her trauma? Do you think the curse gets broken in time? What are you most excited to see in part 2? Some of you are probably thinking, they've got to break the curse, right? Happy ending. But remember, we have a week until the full moon. We have Kane's failsafe accelerating everything. We have Kira's trauma making intimacy terrifying. And we have a kingdom full of people who still don't fully accept her. A lot can go wrong in part 2, or a lot can go beautifully, perfectly right. I read every single comment, every theory, every prediction, every emotional reaction. And honestly, your comments help shape how I tell these stories. So talk to me. Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what you're feeling. Are you team, they'll definitely break the curse? Or team, something's going to go wrong first? Do you think Kira's voice comes back before or during the bonding? What do you want to see happen to Kane and those mercenaries? And here's the real question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how emotionally prepared are you for part 2? Because I'm going to be honest with you, it gets intense. Beautiful, but intense. Part 2 is coming soon. Very soon. But I need to see that you want it. I need to see those likes, those subscriptions, those comments telling me you're ready for the conclusion of Kira and Dax's story. Because we're not done yet. Not even close. This scarred Omega, who everyone ignored, she's about to show the entire kingdom exactly what she's capable of. And this Beast King who knelt before her and begged, he's about to prove that sometimes the most powerful thing a king can do is choose mercy. But you'll have to wait for part 2 to see how it all unfolds. So, like, subscribe, comment. Tell me you're ready. Tell me you need to know what happens next. Tell me this story has you hooked. And I'll see you very, very soon for the conclusion. Because Kira and Dax's story, it's only just beginning. Oh, and one more thing. That moment when Kira's power exploded, when it turned dark instead of golden. That wasn't just rage. That was something awakening. Something that's going to change everything in part 2. Just something to think about while you wait. See you soon.